Good morning, everybody, and happy Friday, Boker Tov. This is the fifth episode of Chai There with Rabbi Leah. I can't believe it's been a week already that I've been home and recording these videos for you and hopefully keeping you entertained and educated and stimulated with some new information. It has been a long week, a challenging week, but in many ways, just an incredible week as well. And I want to just say I'm really proud of all my colleagues. We have an amazing team at Seacrest Village. You probably already know that, but it's really taken a village to keep everything going and everybody working so hard from their respective offices, both at home and at work. I decided to change my venue a little bit. I am still at home, but I wanted to sit in a different position today for a number of reasons. This is a chair that I happen to love, and I don't get to sit in it very much. As you can see, it's got beautiful roses, butterflies, dragonflies, hummingbirds, flowers, and so on. And I call this my happy chair. It's kind of not really a velvet, but similar to a velvet. And I love sitting in it, and especially today because it's helping me begin to relax a little bit before Shabbat, which starts tonight at sundown. More about that later. But I'm also sitting in a different place because there is a wonderful rabbinic saying that I love. And the saying goes like this: Mishne makom umishne mazal. Now, you may recognize a couple of those Hebrew words. You probably recognize the word mazal, which actually we usually translate as luck, but a mazal, the mazalot were the constellations in the sky. And the ancient Israelites were very much into astrology, the constellations, and so on. And in fact, if you travel through Israel, you go to Bet She'an and some of the other amazing ancient archaeological places that have been undug, there is a mosaic there that depicts all of the astrological signs. And we don't think of our ancient ancestors as having been astrologers, but they definitely did follow the astrological signs in the heavens and so on. And were astronomers. I mean, very much hooked into um, what was going on in nature because so much of their lives was relegated by what was going on in the natural world. So you know the word mazal, which means in the way we translate it luck, but it can also mean the stars being aligned. And the expression again is mishne mazal umishne makom, mishne makom umishne mazal, which means change your place and change your luck, or change your destiny. And I don't think the rabbis really meant that by saying you should sit in a different place. I think what they really meant to say was if you are in a situation where you feel like you're stuck in one place, perhaps what you need to do is you need to change that place. You need to move and change your destiny. Change the way the stars are aligning. Now, they were not talking about a physical place. And although I changed my physical place to sit in this happy chair because it's so bright and beautiful, makes me happy, I think what the rabbis were talking about was to change your attitude, to change your mindset, to change your view, the way in which you're looking at things, and that will lead to a change in circumstance. And I think we've all probably experienced that this week. I've had an opportunity to speak with many of you during the week. And if you haven't gotten a call from me yet, don't worry, you will be getting a call from me. I'm not playing favorites, I promise you. I am diligently working through a phone list. So hopefully I will get to more of you today with phone calls. But I think this past week, and actually the past few weeks, have been an incredible learning experience for all of us. I've spoken with a lot of our residents at Seacrest who have told me that they cannot remember in their lifetimes ever having lived through anything like this before. Those who were around for the 1918 Spanish flu were probably very tiny children at the time and don't remember a lot about it. I have had some people tell me that this reminds them kind of what they went through during the Depression and also during World War II, particularly rations, not being able to go to certain places, businesses not being opened, other businesses being retooled and refined so that they could go from manufacturing women's dresses to manufacturing military uniforms and so on and so forth. But most of the people I have talked to said they've really never experienced anything like this before. And I think for a lot of us, it's been a great challenge. It's been a challenge not seeing families. It's been a challenge um, only being able to look at videos if we're seeing our families on FaceTime or Skype. Um, and it has been a challenge. So, for all of us involved, including for those of us who are staying at home and trying to make it work from a whole different place of doing business, um, having things on our computers that we need, and then finding out that we have other things that we need but aren't on our computers. And it's taken a tremendous amount of flexibility. And the word that's come back to me frequently during this time is resolve, people having a great deal of resolve that they're going to get through this, but even more so, the word resilient. And I have been blown away by so many of you that I've talked to for your resilience during this challenging time. Um, so when the rabbis told us Mishneh Makom uMishneh Mazal, I think that the changing of the place that they may have been referring to was actually changing the way in which we look at things. So we often use the expression glass half empty, glass half full. And we say, she's a glass half full kind of person, or he's a glass half empty kind of guy. So we're all experiencing very similar circumstances, but it's the way in which we approach those circumstances that have an enormous impact on how our lives work. And I found in my conversations with so many people this week that those who were maintaining an attitude of, we'll get through this, it's just another challenge. Yes, it is really annoying. Yes, it's really inconvenient. Yes, I would love to be going out. I'd love to be able to go to my daughter's house and have dinner or see my grandchildren and give them a hug. It's inconvenient, it's difficult, but we will prevail. And those who seem to have a more positive attitude are the ones who are getting through this in a much more productive and meaningful way. We are certainly trying to do everything that we possibly can to keep you busy, whether it is with online programming or fitness classes or getting you together in small groups to play bingo or Rummikub or whatever it might be. And hopefully, unless there is some good reason why some of those activities have to be curtailed, God willing, we'll be able to continue with them. So challenges come in sizes big and small. But I think if we can mishneh makom, if we can change our place, meaning our mindset, then we mishneh mazal. Then we can change our luck and change our the outcome, change the way in which we handle these trying circumstances. So I want to talk about what is going to happen this Shabbat, because there's going to be some changes taking place, not in our service and our Shabbat morning liturgy, but in the direction that the Torah is now going to move. We've just finished the book of Exodus, which is kind of ironic because in less than 2 weeks now, we're going to have our first Passover Seder, and we're going to end up going back to some of those narratives from the Torah that talk about, I hate to even use the word, the 10 plagues, the way in which Pharaoh kept changing his mind, the way in which God kept telling Moses, you got to keep going back and trying to get Pharaoh to change his mind. The way in which the Israelites reacted to what was going on, and so on. The way the Egyptians reacted to what was going on, which is a very important part of what we learn about in the book of Exodus. So last week, when we finished the last Torah portion in Exodus, we got ready to move on this week to the book of what is known in Hebrew as Vayikra, or the book of Leviticus. And it's very interesting because not only are we going to a new book, but we are drastically shifting the subject matter of what we're getting into. And the book of Leviticus, the book of Vayikra, falls smack dab in the middle. It's the third book of the Torah. So we have Genesis and Exodus before it, and then we have Numbers and Deuteronomy after it. And the information, the narratives, and the subject matter of Leviticus are really like nothing else that we have seen, and nothing like what we're going to see in the last 2 chapters of the Torah. Leviticus is known as the priestly book because 99%, and that's a very unscientific number, but a huge percentage of what we read in the book of Leviticus is about the priestly cult and how they are going to function once the Israelites get to the land of Israel, build the temple, and what the priest's job is going to be. And we get a sense of how critically important their work was, because not only were these guys the ones who performed all the sacrifices, they were the ones who had a direct communication with God. They were the ones who, through the use of an oracle known as the Urim and Tumim, which we'll talk about later, were able to determine whether or not it was time to pick up and move, whether or not it was time to engage in war with an enemy nation. They were also the doctors. If you had some sort of a blister or a sore or a growth on your body somewhere, they were the ones to determine whether or not it warranted you leaving the camp and going outside of the camp for an entire week before you were allowed to come in. In the book of Leviticus, we're going to get all the laws regarding kashrut, or what became kashrut later, what the rabbis created as kashrut. We're going to find out about all the different animals you may eat and all the different animals you may not eat, and which locusts are kosher and which locusts are not kosher. Not that any of us is about to run out and buy our favorite locusts to snack on while we're watching Netflix this weekend, but we are going to hear about animals that we have no idea what they are or what they were, only that they're named in this book of the Torah. So I used to call Leviticus the book that rabbis love to hate because the information in it is so arcane. It's so anachronistic. It seems to have very little to do with us as Jews living in the 21st century in the United States of America. How are we to relate to these rules, these laws that really have no bearing on us anymore today? Or do they? Maybe they do. And that's the thing that challenges us is how do we make this Torah text, which is several thousand years old, pertinent to us as Jews living in the 21st century in the United States of America, in San Diego County, California? What can we glean from these ancient words that we can relate to our lives today? And frankly, I feel that as a rabbi, that's 99% of my job, is to take this ancient tradition and bring it alive for you today, living in Seacrest in March of 2020. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do as we go through these various chapters of the book of Leviticus, because we're going to read about some very strange things. We are going to read about Metzorah, about leprosy, and we're going to read about how it erupted in the ancient Israelites, what it meant, how it was cured, and then we'll talk about what the ancient rabbis thought it meant. We're going to talk about all the different sacrifices that the high priest did, from sacrifices of, we were all, our ancestors all brought sacrifices to the temple in Jerusalem, and they had many temples all throughout the land of Israel that they were also going to bring their sacrifices. On the big holidays, they all gathered and came to the central temple in Jerusalem, but they made daily sacrifices on their own altars where they lived. So there were sacrifices of well-being. You were just feeling good that day, and you got a great test result from the doctor. So you made a sacrifice of well-being. Or there were sacrifices of thanksgiving. You had good fortune, so you were thankful, and you brought 2 turtle doves and a handful of meal and some olive oil to make a sacrifice. Or there were sacrifices of different kinds of sins that had been created, or that somebody had done. And so there was probably a constant line and rotation of people bringing their various sacrifices, animals, and so on, to their local altars to be sacrificed. And it's really incumbent upon us to try to figure out how we replicate that nowadays without actually bringing an animal somewhere to be sacrificed. So we'll talk more about that. As I mentioned to you, the priests not only actually did the sacrifices, but they were also the doctors at the time, and they also were able to look at things like the walls of somebody's home. And were those walls oozing some sort of strange substance that might have been black or green? And what do we make of that nowadays? So when I used to read the book of Leviticus, I used to kind of moan and groan and say, how are we going to get through this? But now I find it amazingly challenging, and I embrace it. I embrace it because it's much more difficult than reading the stories about Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, many of which are definitely have questions and challenges and things that we have to talk about and try to break through and understand. But we see more of ourselves in those narratives. We see more of ourselves as human beings when we're talking about other human beings and their shortcomings and their character flaws and so on. So I'm going to challenge you to embrace the book of Leviticus with me as we go through it. Our first parsha is called Vayikra, which is the name of the book. I will be chanting from some of that this Saturday morning, tomorrow morning, and I hope you'll join us. So now let me say a couple of other things which are more housekeeping in nature. Having spoken with a number of you, I know that you are watching these particular videos that come on SVTV every morning at 9:30. And I think that our wonderful Director of Life Enrichment, Marissa, is actually replaying them maybe a couple times during the day so that you don't miss out. So a few things that would be really helpful for me, and I think would also give you what you want to get out of these videos. Number one, let me give you my email address at Seacrest. I've given it out a couple times, but I want to give it out again. And the reason I want you to have my email is because I want you to communicate with me. Send me questions. Send me comments. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Make sure that you're keeping me in the loop so that I am getting feedback from you, because unfortunately, YouTube, which is what I'm recording these videos on, is a one-way medium. At least until I'm able to set up comments, it's a one-way medium. And yes, you can scream and rail at your television set, but I'm not going to hear it. So the only way I'm going to get your feedback is if you actually send me an email. So send that to L, like my first name, Leah, Herz, Herz, and it's all one word, L Herz, at seacrestvillage.org. And seacrestvillage.org is also, Seacrest Village is all one word, .org. ORG for organization. So please send me questions, comments, things you'd like to see, things you'd like to learn about. If there was something from the previous days, Hi There with Rabbi Leah, that you'd like to know more about, please send me a question. I'd be delighted to try to answer whatever you have. Now let's talk about the schedule starting tonight, Shabbat, Erev Shabbat, and then going through Saturday afternoon. Tonight, I will be doing blessings live in the Katzen residence. I'll be there at 4:15 in the flesh, just like always, to do the blessings live. After that, I'll make my way to the Charteros Synagogue, where I will do the blessings on live stream at 4:45. So those of you who live in Goldberg, who live in independent living, and who live in assisted living are going to see those blessings live on live stream on your television set at 4:45. Saturday morning, I'll be doing live stream services from my home, and that will be at 10 a.m. and it will go till about 11:15 a.m. And every building, if you live in assisted living or if you live in independent living, you'll be watching on your own television sets. If you live in one of the other two buildings, they've arranged for you to gather in a small group to watch as a group. So that will be coming up on Saturday at 10 in the morning to 11:15. Everybody will have lunch, and then we will reconvene at 1 o'clock for my Shabbat Chaverim. We're starting that again this Saturday. So I hope you will join us. Again, it will be live streamed, which means I'll be teaching, you'll be watching. But in order to make it as interactive as possible, given that I'm not going to be able to hear you or see you, I'm hoping that you will take me up on this invitation, and that is, please send me your questions. We haven't done Stump the Rabbi for quite some time. It's always a lot of fun because the questions you guys have are just amazing and great, and things that some I've never considered before or thought about before. And so it's really a lot of fun for me to get those questions and to be able to answer them for you online. So if I don't get any questions, it's going to be kind of a boring hour because I'm really relying on you to send them to me. So that is going to be Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. So we have a lot of things coming up this Shabbat. Then I'm going to take a little break on Sunday for my Hi There with Rabbi Leah. You're not going to get one on Sunday morning. And then starting again next Monday through Friday. Keep looking on your TV for programs. I hope to do a Jewish Views and News program for all of you, and one Saturday evening to do a Havdalah service live streamed from my home so that we can all separate Shabbat from the rest of the week as a community. So again, it was great to talk to a lot of you this week. I hope you're hanging in there. I hope your families are in touch with you. I'm sure that they are. If they're not, let me know and I will get in touch with them and ask them why they're not keeping in contact with you. Please let us know if you need anything. And join me tomorrow morning. Join me tonight for blessings and join me tomorrow morning for services. If you don't have a prayer book, you can email me and let me know, and I'll make sure that you get one so that you can follow along with the services. And I'll see you all later. Shabbat Shalom. Bye-bye.